how has the way we engage employees evolved, and how do we connect more in a hybrid workplace? So one of the interesting things here on how we engage and connect more is that the hybrid world of work has changed, especially the pandemic and post-pandemic period has changed a lot, the importance of communities.
Lead is a remote-first company based out of Canada.
What makes a world-class Microsoft 365 Intranet and Digital Workplace?
If you don't have active communities, you don't have an easy way to navigate those communities, you haven't built a lot of those types of elements, this is sort of a reminder that they're extremely important. And if I'm in corporate comms, I should care about how do people navigate to communities. I should care about what's the best communication or the best work product in these communities, and how do I amplify and create more visibility for them, right? 100% that's the responsibility of corporate comms. Another good example here is for HR, right? Communities are super valuable for improving excellence, right, across the organization, improving retention, because the more connected employees are, more networked they are, again, the greater retention rules. So again, communities is an obvious one. Here you see an Omnia example of community, but I like that they have this sort of onboarding experience for people who come to the community, right, to really understand it. I think that's a good example of kind of taking communities a little bit further. Here's another pattern that we see a lot, people looking up through an org chart, right? Oh, okay, I want to find people to connect within the organization. I'm going to use the role hierarchy essentially to find those people. What's missing here is that, well, this is useful as a one-off. It's often not a thing to engage with, right? It's only for, I really just need to see who reports to whom, right? Who's in this working group. What you can do, though, with a very minor amount of effort, is you could change that in more interesting ways where it becomes actually a roll-up category. So when I go to something like HR, or I go to recruitment, or I go to some subsets here, what it could actually do is surface people, documents, news, other informational assets for me. Now that's obviously something that Omnia, you can see here, does out of the box. They have this really wonderful organization design, right, and a way to navigate your organization design and surface information, but there's no reason you can't do this with out of the box SharePoint or other things. It's just not gonna be as visually nice, but you can kind of create these kinds of structures yourself. You already have it, right? Often you have a recruitment departmental landing page, right? What's different here is they're actually using the org chart as a navigation journey, which I'm a huge fan of. I think it's really clever and quite impactful. Let's talk about another big problem, right? So going back to this question, we kind of talked a little bit about engaging employees, but connecting employees, that's a bit harder. So how do we connect employees? Well, the problem is, as we move to more remote work, one of the best ways for people to connect with one another, because managers don't connect employees. Let's be honest, they don't do a good job of it. So the only way employees typically connect is if you have like events, right? People get together, social events or business events where people get together, they make new connections, they interact with people they normally wouldn't, and that creates more network ties, greater density, keeps them in the company longer, because if they do move, they often move laterally, right? Or within the company itself instead of moving outside the company. And these are all great things. So the question is, right, if we look at so few people that are digital workers, which is most people now, right, that we often work with, if those are the people that are struggling to meet new people, we can't just sit on the sidelines anymore and say, oh, it's their responsibility or it's a department's responsibilities, et cetera. Corporate comms and HR have to proactively engage with this. So there's a few simple ways, right? You could take the new employee experience and not just do like, hey, sign off request, which we'll talk about in a second, but actually have people introduce themselves, ask questions to them automatically and say, tell me more about like your favorite foods, what movies you like, whatever is relevant for your organization. Ask those questions and then use that as ways to connect people, right, within the organization. Create almost dynamic communities, right, of interest across the organization and connect people through that. You can actually even create experiences where you use that data and then you automatically create sort of a connection between people. So it's kind of like, I don't know if Tinder is even a thing anymore, but Tinder for the enterprise, right? This idea of like, okay, look, you both have an interest in X. It could be a non-business thing, it could be a business thing. You both have an interest in SharePoint. You both have an interest in intranets. Okay, we can see that. We have all the data that shows that. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna suggest, maybe you guys would be interested in connecting with one another and having a coffee chat, having some sort of, unstructured dialogue that creates greater networking connections, and obviously has huge impacts on in terms of creating more improvements across the business, right? Because often when these people connect on a subject that matters to the business, like meeting management or whatever it is, when those two individuals connect on that, they're going to come up with ideas, outputs from that, especially if they communicate that. And remember, corporate communications is looking for this kind of insight in a community. We can uplift that and make everyone benefit from that dialogue. So the more we proactively connect employees, the greater we impact the risks of attrition that relates to people feeling disconnected. And that is a much bigger problem with remote employees today, right? Because you don't feel connected to a lot of people join companies over the last few years and they've never met their peers, and this can be a problem if we're not proactive. So there's some really clever ideas here, and there's more we could talk about here, but the gist is we need to be proactive here, right? Connecting employees. Engagement's important, but honestly, I think most organizations do a pretty good job with engagement. I think the challenge is we need to be more proactive on connecting employees. And then when you create engagement around connection, then that really takes it to the next level. Hey everyone. So as mentioned, there's a dense 50 minutes of content here. I'm always a big fan of giving you guys too much information and insight. So do expect to kind of drink from the fire hose. And with that, let me just quickly describe why I'm here and why I'm talking to you about this particular topic area.